Welcome to Thriving from Anxiety. My name is Sherry Anna Boyle, and I'm here with my co-host Cindy Horgan. And as always, we are here to provide some really great discussion. We hope to have a few laughs to lighten things up a little bit. And finally, we hope to leave you with some tips, tools, some things to think about for ways to not only cope with anxiety, but how do you thrive from it? And we're here to support you on that journey. And today is about supporting teenagers. So I want to begin this discussion with you, Cindy, because I know you have a lot of experience working with teenagers. I know you, and so why don't you begin and tell us what you think?
Well, you know, I think I'm a rare person because I love actually teenagers. I think that they're really amazing individuals. There's several things that I think make teenagers really amazing, and part of it is one of the things that frustrates many of us, and we see it as the problem, is teenagers are designed to live in the moment. They're designed not to really worry about what's going to happen from this action today and how it may impact my future. They really are designed in this very moment.
I love that.
And
I love that. You don't hear that. Nobody says that.
It's the truth.
But it is the truth.
It is the truth.
I love that.
And when you think of, very often when we think of teenagers, we think of conflict. From an adult perspective,
that's right. Yes.
We think of conflict, and a lot of it is just being heard. But you know, they will say, I don't care about tomorrow. I don't care what colleges think. I don't care about a job.
Yes.
You know, and in that moment there. And so part of the frustration, which often conflict, I think, is the beginning of anxiety, because anxiety is sort of that breakdown in that relationship.
Right, yeah.
But it begins with conflict of not understanding that moment for teenagers. And not that it's not our job to shift them, because that's how they're designed. It's part of the growing process.
Yes.
And so I think often when we think about teenagers, that's one of the things we think about.
Right.
The other thing to put into perspective is every teenager that walks into a room with 10 or more people, and even up to 1,000 people in that room, believe that the moment they walk in there, everybody's looking at them.
That's right. That's right.
So you really have that emotional
Right.
comes
it's so
in.
developmental.
Yes.
As much as it can be very frustrating for a parent, it is developmentally appropriate, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yes. And the other thing, you bring up a good point in the I don't care and the statements that they use. And one thing that I remember when you and I, and as far as I do work with some teenagers when it comes to stress and anxiety, privately is sort of dissecting those words a little bit. And very often those words are a cover-up. You know, they develop a little bit of a code language, you know? And for girls,
oh my gosh,
it's I'm fat,
Yep.
right? That's their code. And I know you've
for
code boys.
I don't care means I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you want of me.
Right.
I'm trying to interpret all the signs here, and none of them make sense to me.
Yes. And for girls, you know, it can come out through appearance and also feeling isolated, and their fear. One of their greatest fears is to be alone, right? To be abandoned, and so to recognize that there's some code, and I know there's even more for boys, because you and I we've taught on this topic. We've done workshops where you go ahead.
In the boy world, I mean, there's such, you know, first of all, I think it's always helpful from an adult place to put it into perspective, because if we honestly did a survey, how many of us would say, let me be 14 again, let me be 15 again, it was the most amazing time of my life. We were all like, thank God I survived it.
That's right.
Seriously. And when you look at pictures, you're like, who let me out like that? You know, seriously. But when we start to, there's such an experience that happens in the parent-child or the parent-teen relationship citizenship.
Right.
Because those boys, those emotions are so big inside of them that they frighten them. They live at a level of fear.
Right.
I think that if you really went and put sort of a heart monitor or, you know, a pulse monitor, it would be off the charts. We'd be like, this kid's going to crash in a second because it's so big. And but our boys, their ability to communicate that, and that's where the word you used, in private, was just, that resonated so big with me, because it's so much. Private to me means respect. And when you call me out in front of people, it is never going to go well.
That's right.
Because it just heightens it.
Absolutely.
But when you say, this doesn't feel good, we need to have a conversation in private and set up, I think they will always save face. That's the thing. If you call them out on something, they're always going to save face. So it's going to be either they're going to push back at you with something maybe disrespectful, or turn around and say something to their friends, about the situation that you're not going to really, you just know, right? So I agree, the private thing is so important, and that is a natural part of development as well, Sin, where they tend to go to their rooms more. And I think for parents it can be very anxiety provoking, because we're thinking, what is going on behind closed doors? And how much do I leave them alone? And how much do I keep checking on them? And then there's the balancing act of, you don't want to do the overprotective parenting, because that can also exasperate, you know, symptoms of stress and anxiety in kids. They start to push back because they really are supposed to be growing up and getting independent. So there's such a juggling. I mean, you raised 5 teenagers. I did. I was in teenage land for a while. So can
you share a little bit about that?
You know, first of all, it was really important that we looked at each of them as individuals. Each of them, you know, presented in a different way. I think that if they really sort of sat down and surveyed, I'd say that they were feeling many of the same things, but it's how they presented it. And it was a real art to learn how to do that sort of respectful connection. One of the things that was important to how it worked in our family with 5 teenagers was we really had very clear rules that were for everybody as far as how to communicate. And it doesn't sound like this, but the rules were how to have fair fighting. So it wasn't how do you be a nice communicator, it was how do you fight fairly. Because there's a lot of that. And part of it was to really go over those rules. I had to be held accountable to those rules sometimes.
Yes.
And I think the shift, because not only did we do 5 teenagers, but I actually don't look back at it and say, thank God that's over. I really enjoyed the other parts that came from it, because their ideas and their thinking was really forward thinking, and some, you know, well, why don't, you know, if everybody voted this way, and I mean really talking politics and things like that, and real big issues, and so that piece there, but that of understanding, it's kind of like these are rocky roads, and to me, at the end of the day, the most important tool that families needed to have well oiled in their toolbox was communication. And it wasn't just about how you hear, it was about how I hear you. And, you know, from the child that comes in and says, I don't want to talk about it, I needed to give space to that. I didn't hover and say, do you think we should get a therapist? What do you think we should do here? But I needed to give space to it, and enough of a door opener that said, I'm here when you're ready to talk.
And that's the key, keeping the door open, and also recognizing that there are times when everybody's going to need a break. I mean, I do think that when you're raising teenagers, there is a big self-care piece for yourself. I mean, when the kids are little, we talk about it. We say, oh, make sure you get time for yourself, and you get a mother's helper or someone to come over and give you a hand. But guess what? That you need that when they're teenagers as well. You need time to just go off and do your own thing, because it can be, they're changing so fast.
Right.
So fast. I mean, the amount of changes that you just get adjusted and then they change again.
Right. Well, you know, adolescence, puberty is just, it's, you know, again, who would say, let me do that again?
Yes.
You know, really, in the big picture here. But, you know, as far as being able to take self-care is really important. Self-care sometimes meant when there would be conflict, when there would be, you're the meanest mother in the whole world and you're the only one.
Right.
Self-care meant saying, I'm going to take a break from this right now. I'm not going to let you verbally abuse me.
Right.
And some of us come out feeling kind of beat up. You know, there were ways that when things really needed to be talked about, sometimes talking was not going to do it.
Right.
And one of the things that I often went to is writing to my children. I would leave love notes literally on their bed, and just planting a seed is what I called it.
Right.
And leave that note there and connect at that place there.
Those moments of connection.
Yeah.
And they're not the same for everybody, and really looking for those windows of opportunity where you can sit down and connect again and really hear each other, right? Really listen to each other. So important.
It really, and part of it was about setting a tone of respect. You know, one of the places that that relationship can be really take a lot of activity is in a car. But in our world today, we're plugged in.
Right.
So me as the parent, the adult, I need to establish clear rules that I'm not on a phone. Right. I'm not engaged in that. So this, whether we talk or not, is sacred land.
Yes.
No cell phones.
Yes.
Sacred land. So it's okay if we drive in silence. That's okay.
Right.
And I can end that silent ride with one big word. I love you and I believe in you. That's it.
Right.
Thanks for this time.
Yes, you know, I'd like to talk about the respect thing, because I do feel that that brings a lot of anxiety and stress in the home, because it is a time where they're in developmentally, they're testing the limits, they're looking for more freedom, they're also needing discipline, and so what's really helped me, I have one preteen and one teen, is really re-educating myself a little bit, because not all of us got it, Sin. I mean, and I'm not sure fully what you got, but not all of us got it in our own upbringing. You know, we didn't all have role models where we could see that respectful relationship between partners, and I was one of them. So I had to re-educate, and I continue to re-educate myself today. Okay, I keep asking for respect. It seems like it's not reciprocal. So maybe I need to re-educate myself. And so what I find is, in doing that I've had to learn the difference between respecting and controlling. Right. And what I thought was respect was actually me asking for wanting control and fearing that I'm losing control. And I think that's been some of the introspection that I've done myself that I've found the most helpful is control is really to dominate. You know, I said it, you do it. You know, do it because I said so. Doesn't matter why. You do it because I said so.
Because you should respect me.
Because you should respect me. But then, respect, if you really look at how respect is defined, respect is really having an admiration for someone. I mean, if you really think of someone that you admire, the qualities in them, or maybe their character, or their work, or it's a very different nature than control. They're really not alike at all. So I've had to really relearn that myself and teach myself what is respect. And you know what it is? It's a feeling. Yeah. And that's where we get caught up. You can't, it's not from here, it's from here. Right. And as soon as I move into my heart, this space, then I get it. Aha, I know. You know, you're someone that I respect greatly. I've respect for a long time. I consider you one of my mentors. I've told you that before. And that's has nothing to do with the fact that you've dominated, or it's just been this admiration, really. And
well, I feel the same way, love. But you know,
but I just want to say, not all of us got it. So here I am later. I'm just getting it, but it's never too late.
No, and I, you know, it's so valuable what you said as far as that control piece. I also think it's expectation.
Yes. Yes.
You know, and again, the teenager is designed to challenge the expectation.
Yes.
So when we get caught up in that cycle, it takes away from this whole piece there.
Right.
So the respect at that level is, I appreciate that you see it differently than I do. I value it. I admire that you see it differently. But in our house right now, this is my expectation. So that's how you separate those two things.
I like that.
And you know, I really think that for me to grow with my teenagers, and I was growing just as much as they were.
Right.
I needed to first acknowledge when it felt disrespectful and say, you know, when you talk to me that way, I know that you have some strong feelings right now, and I can appreciate those.
Yes.
But the way you speak to me feels disrespectful.
Yes.
And to just name it like that.
Right. Right.
Can we practice it again? Or do we need to take a break for a few minutes because our emotions are bigger than us right now?
Right, right.
And so often, you know, that screaming, and I was watching something, and I never get the clicker, I've told you that. And for some reason, I got the clicker, I didn't know what to do, but it was a scene of a parent, a teenager and a parent, and the parent was kind of walking away like hand up, and the teenager was saying, but this is so important to me. Wow. And just, you could see this, I mean, their eyeballs were, you know?
Right.
And it is because they're in the moment.
Right.
And we need to really, if we really want to engage and work on that, what's happening, what's deep anxiety in teenagers, is I want you to hear me.
Yes.
I want you to hear that this is important.
Yeah, even if it doesn't seem important to us.
Exactly. And it most often does.
Most often does.
And then we do that thing where, well, don't be silly.
Right, yes.
A horrible thing to say to someone.
Yes.
Don't be silly, because this is my whole world right now.
Right, and they're social.
Yeah, they're social beings.
Yes.
But that respect thing, I believe that anybody can learn it. But I believe we know when we don't have it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
And when
That's a
we
good
have
point.
what you and I have, in all honesty, you and I work so well together because we have always been really in a respectful relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and it speaks to our history and our longevity.
Absolutely. And I want to go to a big picture now, because this is something that I have been focusing on with various groups in different ways that I've been educating people out in the community, just as you. We leave here and we go out and we do lots of different group work and private work and so on and so forth. And something that I have been thinking about is where to begin with our teenagers, and a place that I think everybody can start to tap into is what's referred to as a collective consciousness. That is when you get a large group of people starting to buy in to the same beliefs, right? And it could be also called maybe stereotypes.
Okay.
And that is where we all say, oh, geez, our teenagers.
Yeah.
You know, and it creates a mindset.
It does.
And so it feels heavy. You can walk into communities and buildings, and you can be like, I just couldn't wait to get out of there.
Yeah.
And then you can walk into other environments, and you can say, wow, you know, that just felt so different. So I think what I've been helping people to just consider is unplugging from the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
So just see yourselves, and I have a vision for this, and the vision is to imagine a tree with a Christmas, just imagine a Christmas tree with lights all over it.
Yes.
And as you unplug from these kinds of beliefs, our teenagers are broken. See yourself unplug, just like a light would go out, or see yourself being the only light left,
right,
and everybody else is unplugging. But that's just sort of the image that we all have a responsibility, because it's kind of like when somebody says a racist remark, and you're at the table and you don't say anything, but yet you're a part of that in some way. You're a part of keeping that whole stigma. I feel like we need to start doing that with teenagers a little bit.
I agree so much. I mean, truly, I have had the privilege of just being in such, not only with my own teenagers, who, again, I enjoyed it, but in other places where I see them creating change, taking, real responsibility for this world and teaching us as adults and things like that. I think it's a gift if we can really shift from that, and it again, it's
from
just
that brokenness, seeing them as broken, seeing them as wounded, seeing you hear a lot of it now. Oh, what are we going to do? Work is hard. These kinds of things. I just think we all need to be really aware of.
Well, that's what they tell us when the studies will say, 3 out of 10 kids drink before they get to high school.
That's right.
5 out of 10 kids are having sex.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about the other 5 that aren't.
That's right.
And the other 7 that aren't.
That's right. That's what I mean.
And we all, we become what people tell us we are.
That's right.
Oh, you're a teenager.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Right?
And so we do that to teenagers all the time. We roll our eyes. They're a teenager, and she'll probably kill me, but I remember once my teenage daughter coming downstairs, and she was going out that evening. She was going out with some friends, very innocent on her part. And she was, in my eyes, as her mom, a very attractive young girl. And the outfit she came down in was just not one that I would have wanted her to wear. It just, to me, it gave a message that I know that was not her intention.
Right.
Well, I'm trying to into her father, and so she came downstairs, and I'm like, this could go south very quickly, or it could go from a respectful place of admiring, just as you said.
All right.
So I looked at her and I said, you're really excited about going out tonight, and I'm looking at what you're wearing tonight, and I think that, it is a lovely outfit. But when I think of where you're going and what you want to do, I don't think it's giving the message that you really, that you want to give. And I know that you have some other things up there that you might be more comfortable in this setting, do you think? And then I just stepped back from it. So she, she just kind of, and went, and then came downstairs lovely.
Yes.
Minutes later, my husband at the time, he's going, his eyeballs are poking out. I go, we've already moved this forward. You weren't paying attention to the last outfit, but it was, it was a wonderful experience of how to tell her that I'm not, I understand where you're at, or I'm trying to understand it.
Yes.
And I'm not going to tell you it's bad. I'm just giving you another vision.
Right. That's a great, I love that story. Yeah. And dress is.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It is. And I know that we have people that are probably watching us that are saying, well, what about technology? And what about the phones? And what about unplugging? And how that's become such a.
And our biggest challenge with the world of technology, well, again, it's supposed to improve our life, and absolutely. But our biggest challenge is that our kids live in the moment, so that their capacity to be safe in there. And I think that we have a responsibility as a world to really help kids to learn real technology citizenship and how to be safe. Yeah,
I love that.
Really to say, I believe you have the responsibility for this, but I'm going to help you become a really good citizen with this. I don't think the answer is that you'll never have it or take it away, because that's just going to get bad and ugly.
Yes.
But to say, I'm willing to work on this with you, together with you, and how that plays out. And, you know, and I always use it, I consider technology to be a privilege.
Yeah.
Unless you're working and you're paying for it, it's a privilege.
Right, it is.
And with it becomes responsibility.
Yes.
You have so many wonderful opportunities during this amazing time to be teaching again and again the ability to grow in responsibility, to be a responsible person. And just as young children sort of master a task, so do teenagers. They need to repeat things a couple of times. Because remember, their brains still are still getting that sort of high energy functioning and getting to that frontal part.
We need to talk about our tips, Sin, and maybe I'll begin a little bit with that. As far as the tip that I have for your teenager is, what I would encourage people to do is focus on yourself first. And what I mean by that is, if you can just, in the last episode, we were attempting to teach people how to breathe in our own way. But if you can just start to, if you're feeling charged by your teen, if you're feeling that flutter, that anxiety, take a breath, breathe 2-3 breaths in and out, and before you say anything, because I think your presence makes a huge difference. And when we take time to breathe before we say something, we actually change the energy behind the words.
I love that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we do. So that's my recommendation. How about you?
My recommendation, or my tip, is to really find something positive in a very genuine way about your teen.
Yes.
Because they're feeling very judged again.
That's right.
And we, as you were saying, sort of that collective energy that, you know, they don't do anything right.
That's right.
And if we continue to use that lens, we're, you know, they become what we tell them they are.
That's right. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
You're selfish.
Absolutely.
And so I think when you say to a teen, well, I appreciated you giving me a call last night to let me know you were going to be late. You're going to, you know, that's saying, thanks, I get that. And that's going to that place of respect.
Yes.
You know, I appreciate that that test was really hard. I saw you studied hard and you did your best, and it's okay. I think the world of teenagers is an amazing thing. And so tonight we've really started, we've just touched the iceberg.
We did.
And
we can talk about it again
I
at
think
another
we should,
point.
because again, we've all been there. We have all been there, and it's an amazing part of that journey.
So I hope our viewers send in your questions and comments, because we would be happy to continue this discussion. And you'll be proud of them. You will. I tell you to love them, to respect them, and when you can, hold them, because I think that's sacred. Thanks so much for
this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you.